What is up, guys? Welcome back to the R2R Network. My name's Chaos Chris from the Verse Crypto channel, and I'll be your host today. Before we hop in this video, follow us on X, follow Rags to Riches, follow Vibra Finance, follow Money Gain Crypto, and follow our newest addition to the R2R Network, RAD. Now, getting into this video, I got 3 hot, hidden AI altcoins that you need to know about. We're going to be covering the artificial intelligence narrative within the cryptocurrency market, discuss what's going on, talk about these 3 projects and why I believe they have some insane upside potential. Please keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for entertainment and education purposes only. Full disclosure of these 3 projects I covered, one of the projects I'm actually currently in, and I will disclose that when we go and cover that project. Now, to get in, what's going on with artificial intelligence right now? So currently we have big major corporations like Google, Yahoo, Apple. They're building their own centralized models and they're putting it into cell phones, computers, TVs, the whole 9 yards. And then on the blockchain, we have decentralized artificial intelligence. This is your chatbots. This is your full-on blockchain infrastructure. This is also marketplaces, almost anything you can think of. Now, one of the biggest downsides of artificial intelligence is computation and data storage. Currently, ChatGPT spends somewhere between $700,000 to $1 million every single month to maintain the ChatGPT machine learning model. This means that currently ChatGPT is not necessarily economically feasible. And this is where blockchain technology comes in, because with the blockchain, it's a great place to not only have decentralized finance and decentralized centralized corporations and entities, but also it's a great place to store some of this data so that these AI machine learning models can pull from the blockchain and continue to operate. Now, when people think about cryptocurrency, they think about like dog coins and decentralized exchanges, and they think of like Pulse Chain, Ethereum, and just making tons of money. But in my opinion, I personally think cryptocurrency was the gateway for artificial intelligence. If you go back and you research crypto wars and some of the stuff that was being developed back in the 70s and 80s, it turns out that the infrastructure that we're seeing on the blockchain was needed to basically create a self-operating autonomous AI. And this is basically like one of the robots from the Matrix that can basically think and do stuff on its own, is basically what I'm trying to say. And so in my opinion, what we're starting to see is a gradual transition from DeFi, the blockchain revolution, into the artificial intelligence revolution. But cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and blockchain technology is the gateway. And that's why I personally think AI is going to be one of the hottest niches in this upcoming bull market. Now, starting off with projects that I've been doing a lot of research. Conservatively, I probably looked into about 300 projects the past 2 years. And I found 3 projects that I absolutely think are going to crush it. Now, this first project came across my desk when one of my buddies hit me up and said, "Hey, Chris, I think I found the Bitcoin of the AI cryptocurrency sector." And I'm just like, "What are you talking about? A Bitcoin of AI?" And when I went through and I did some research, I think he actually might be correct. And this is actually probably one of the most popular AI projects right now. And the name of this project is BitSensor Tau. Now, what is BitSensor Tau? So BitSensor is revolutionizing the development of machine learning platforms by decentralizing the process and creating peer-to-peer market for machine intelligence. It enables the collective intelligence of AI models to come together, forming a digital hive mind. So there's a lot of big words in that first 2 sentences, but just to break down what BitSensor Tau is, it's creating a network so that developers can bring on machine learning programs and put them together so that basically they can build on top of each other. And so the idea of the BitSensor Tau network is to create something similar to Bitcoin, except all the energy that's going in to securing the network is going to go into training machine models. Now, the big thing that they were highlighting is this thing called digital hive mind. So within the BitSensor Tau network, you have these things called subnets, and there's 30 of them. And within each subnet, it's its little own machine learning model. And so what this machine learning model does is it basically communicates with other machine learning models and continues to build up, build up, build up, so that it creates a stronger computer program. And so what BitSensor Tau was, they created a decentralized network that builds on top of all of this and makes it decentralized and ultimately a huge behemoth in the artificial intelligence ecosystem. Now, some things with BitSensor Tau that really caught my eye. Number one, when this project launched, there was no VC funding. Essentially, there was no seed round, there was no big corporations coming in and just buying in at the beginning. Number two, it was basically fair launch. When BitSensor Tau went live, everyone had to go in, buy up the token, and purchase it themselves. So basically, it just shows that it was mainly for people at the ground level that wanted to get in, and it was basically a decentralized network that was being run and operated by the community. Now, coming down here, there's a really great diagram that shows how BitSensor Tau works, and this goes into what I was just talking about the subnets and the blockchain and Tau. So basically, with these subnets that you have right here, they feed into these validators, and these validators power dApps and the whole 9 yards. And within these subnets, it plugs right back into the Tau blockchain. Now, the Tau blockchain is kind of at the top. It's like the main brain, and it assigns each of these subnets a machine AI learning task. And so the subnet goes through, completes the task, and reports it back to the blockchain. Now, if the subnets are underperforming, they can actually get dropped off of the network, and someone who's basically up next in the network can come in and take back over that subnet. Now, some subnets that are under the BitSensor Tau blockchain, they have one for text generation, scraping generation, image generation, video generation. They also have an AI prediction model. And one of the coolest things I was reading about this AI prediction model for BitSensor Tau is that in the last bull run, they were able to get very close to predicting the Bitcoin top. So not only was Richard Hart one of the only people that predicted the top of Bitcoin, it was also BitSensor Tau that came in second place, who was also the closest as well, which is really cool. And then also on top of that, they actually have a subnet for cloud computing, which with cloud computing, it's really big with Amazon and, big tech companies. It has a lot to do with storing data on a cloud, which is basically the internet. So ultimately, BitSensor Tau is taking all the main components of the AI decentralized cryptocurrency space, pulling it all in together and just making this huge behemoth. Now, what's interesting about the BitSensor Tau network is if you look at some of these other projects, you've probably seen like projects like OXO, Pal AI, Trios Labs. Essentially, how Tau is being set up is that each of these subnets could actually be maintained by one of these artificial intelligence projects, meaning that whatever Pal AI is working with, they can actually come onto the BitSensor Tau network and create a subnet and then plug into all these subnet, and they basically share information with each other when it comes to training these machine learning models. So essentially the point I'm trying to get across is in the future, there's very well a good chance that all these AI models that you guys are looking at right now will actually be plugging into the BitSensor Tau network. Now, on top of BitSensor Tau, like I said earlier, it's a proof of work network. It has 21 million tokens max supply. And something interesting that I found when I was looking through BitSensor Tau is approximately 90% of the tokens are actually staked in the network. So 90% of the circulating supply is staked into whether it's like a mining pool or validator or whatnot. And so that means that a lot of people are using the network, and the reason why they're doing that is because they're trying to earn more tokens by utilizing the network, which is absolutely cool. Also, on top of that, because BitSensor Tau is a proof of work blockchain with also components of proof of stake, they actually have a halving cycle very similar to Bitcoin. So every halving cycle that comes out, the amount of BitSensor Tau that hits the market gets cut in half over time, and something that we also see with Bitcoin as well, which I find really awesome. Now, the one thing that really caught my eye, and this was like the big, light bulb that popped off for me when it came to BitSensor Tau, was there's actually a mining company called Foundry. And Foundry is one of the biggest Bitcoin miners in the space. And what's really interesting about Foundry is not only are they one of the biggest Bitcoin miners, they also are one of the biggest BitSensor miners on the network. They have approximately 31.5% of the tokens staked on the network, which shows you that because this project was like a fair launch project and they didn't have any seed round or pre-sales or ICOs, you're seeing a lot of these big VC funded corporations come in at the end and buy up this token and go compete in the network. Another thing that I also saw, Fox News is actually covering BitSensor Tau as well, which is absolutely crazy. So based on all this stuff, it's basically giving me early Bitcoin vibes, and it's absolutely cool. Plus, it's the same token supply as Bitcoin. Now, when it comes to the tokenomics, basically it's like a hybrid proof of work and proof of stake blockchain, and you can take your Tau tokens, stake it into a subnet, and basically earn yield and help secure the network. And what I find really interesting is because 90% of the tokens are staked, and then we got these big VC fund companies coming in and buying up these tokens. We're starting to see a massive short squeeze on BitSensor Tau, and it's getting to a point where exchanges are actually running out of BitSensor Tau, which absolutely blows my mind, and it shows you the huge demand behind this network. So overall, I really like BitSensor Tau. It's a very unique project, and I think it has potential to do some really great returns in this market. Now, just taking a look at the price. When BitSensor Tau was out, it launched a little bit last year, and it's been trading sideways for most of 2023. And I believe this token got almost as low as $35. And since we started phasing towards the end of the year, BitSensor Tau just started running up, and we went from about $35 to $619 very, very quickly. And partially this is due to the fact that, number one, they had a bridge wrapped Tau token over on the Ethereum blockchain, so it actually allows for all the Ethereum traders to buy into it. Number two, when BitSensor Tau originally launched, they were actually on some like third-party exchanges, the really sketchy exchanges that nobody knows if they're going to be successful or maybe they'll go down under. And then slowly over time, we started to see listings on KuCoin, Binance, and all these major exchanges. So BitSensor Tau went from being one of the hardest tokens to buy to one of the easiest tokens to buy, and the price reflects it. And these other two tokens that I'm going to be talking about today, they're basically tokens similar to BitSensor Tau before they had this initial run-up, and they're also very similar to adding this AI machine learning model component. So overall, I really like BitSensor Tau. I do think there's something here. A lot of people are extremely excited. And another thing about BitSensor Tau that I think is really, really cool is they actually have tokens being launched onto the network. One of the most popular tokens was this token called Kaizuna. Let's see if it will pop up. Yes, so Kaizuna. Now, Kaizuna owns one of the subnets under BitSensor Tau, and Kaizuna actually does a lot of work with image generation, and it's also one of the first meme coins to launch within the BitSensor Tau network, and also this token is on the Ethereum blockchain. So what I really like is we're starting to see the launch of tokens. We're starting to see project development teams come out and basically bring their tokens onto other blockchains as a great marketing tool, and also they're basically exploring a niche within the BitSensor Tau network. So for example, Kaizuna does a lot of work with image generation. There's a couple projects that are doing stuff with AI predictions, video generation, the whole 9 yards. So overall, I think BitSensor Tau is a really cool blockchain. It's a first cycle blockchain. And in my opinion, if this token explodes and they are able to get billions of dollars and reach a massive valuation, there's a good chance that BitSensor Tau just kicked off a new technological revolution within the cryptocurrency space. So that is why BitSensor Tau is your first AI hidden altcoin gem. I technically gave you guys two, but it is what it is. Now, for your next hidden AI altcoin gem, This project was actually founded by a former developer at MIOTA. He's been known to launch absolutely awesome projects, and when this project came across my desk and I saw that was similar to decentralize, I immediately jumped into it. And the name of this project is Cubic. So Cubic is the first ever useful proof of work layer 1 blockchain. Now, before we get into like what Cubic is and talk about what proof of useful work is, let's talk a little bit about the founder. And this will say a lot. So Cubic was founded by this guy named where is it? Okay, Sergey. Oh, excuse me. So basically, Cubic was founded by Sergey Avdencheglo. I don't know if I butchered that, but so Sergey was historically a really great developer when it came to layer 1 projects. Now, if we go down and just look at some of the projects he's worked on in the past before he started working on Cubic, one of his first projects he worked on was NXT. And basically, NXT was one of the first layer 1 platforms that had smart contracts. They also had like decentralized exchanges, and it basically opened up the gateway for the Ethereum blockchain. After he worked with NXT, which, also another thing, NXT was one of the highest appreciating ICO launches. It did 144,000x after launch. So it was actually one of the most lucrative projects ever. So after he was doing work with NXT, he actually moved over to MIOTA. And so MIOTA was doing a lot of work with Internet of Things, and that's basically trying to connect the cloud and the blockchain to your cell phone, your laptop, your household appliances, the whole 9 yards. And so the idea with the Internet of Things is you're basically trying to program household appliances to be autonomous and do certain tasks. And so that's what MIOTA was trying to do. And also on top of that, MIOTA is really, really involved with smart cities. And so in 2015, he joined IOTA and started working on this project. And he was one of the main faces of the IOTA Foundation. And IOTA went on to be a really great project. He basically brought in a lot of adoption. And then from IOTA, he moved over to Cubic. So all in all, Sergey is a legendary blockchain developer. A lot of people know him. I believe his name was the Come From Behind. I believe that's his nickname, Come From Behind developer or founder, and I believe his Twitter name. So after Sergey went through and did NXT and also got into IOTA, he started Cubic. And so what Cubic is it's called a proof of useful work blockchain. Now, if you guys been looking at Bitcoin, and you probably heard a lot of Richard Hart streams, he talks about how Bitcoin mining is extremely wasteful, which I agree 100%. You're basically spending all that energy to power Bitcoin miners to secure the network, approve transactions, yada, yada, yada. Now, what Cubic does is it takes a similar component of Bitcoin networks, but except it actually trains machine learning models through these things called computers, which are very similar to Bitcoin miners. And so through training these machine learning models, it actually secures the network and also advances AI. So it's a very, very similar system to decentralize. The only thing difference is decentralize has proof of work and proof of stake. Now, if we come over here to the Learn page, it goes through everything. And I'll be honest with you guys, when I got into this project, there's very little information, but I was able to pull it all together and just really sum up for you guys in a very easy to understand way. Now, coming over to Cubic, ultimately, Cubic has a very interesting tokenomics and utility model. Now, coming down here, we talked about useful proof of work, traditional work, the difference between AI, blockchain, and the whole 9 yards. Now, what's interesting about Cubic is their governance model, and it talks about the difference between these things called computers and arbitrators. Hold on, let me go down here and pull it up. I guess it's not here. Huh. Cool. Let's see. Where is it? Cool. All right. So basically, there's two components to the Cubic network. The first one is the computer, which is very, very similar to the traditional miners. Now, one interesting part about this when I was diving in and just doing research on this was they have something called an arbitrator. And so this arbitrator is like the central AI system that assigns a machine learning task to all the computers, and then the computers come in and essentially go through and complete the task. Now, what's interesting about the arbitrator is no one knows who controls it, but people speculate that the foundation actually controls the arbitrator. Now, on top of that, the max supply of Cubic, and let's go to the tokenomics, there's basically 1 quadrillion tokens. So it's 1,000 trillion tokens. And every time there's a smart contract or a token launching on top of the blockchain, all those tokens are burned. And for every project that launches on top of the Cubic blockchain, they basically have a fair launch auction system where you put up Cubic tokens to receive the token of the project that's launching on Cubic, and all those tokens are burnt straight off of the blockchain. Now, what's really interesting is Cubic has a inflationary tokenomics model, and once the amount of tokens get up to about 1,000 trillion tokens and surpasses that amount, they basically have a weekly 1 trillion token burn until the amount of tokens go back down to that cap supply of 1,000 trillion tokens. Now, you might be asking yourself, Chris, okay, that sounds great. It sounds like there's a lot of inflation, but it's also deflationary at the same time. Now, what's interesting is when projects launch on top of the Cubic blockchain, they recently had this project called QX. And basically, QX was the first decentralized exchange, and it was and it essentially burned 15% of the tokens out of circulation across the Cubic blockchain, which is absolutely crazy. So if you guys kind of put it all together, basically what happens is with Cubic, you can actually have the price of the Cubic token go up while the market cap goes down based on how many projects launch on top of the network, which is pretty cool. Now, another thing I also want to bring up is the epochs and the validators. So as I mentioned earlier, you have the computers and then you have the arbitrators. There's approximately 676 computers, and then there's one arbitrator, which we don't know who controls. And every epoch, there's about, I think it was 1 trillion tokens that are minted out into the network. And the goal of these computers is to perform these tasks, and whichever computers perform the task and perform the best, they'll get the most tokens. So the overall performance of each of these computers is based off of how well they perform going in the future. Now, what's really interesting is every epoch, approximately 2/3 of the computers can actually be replaced by ones waiting in line if those computers are basically underperforming. So that means about 2/3 of all of those computers or Bitcoin miners can get replaced every single 7 days. So it continuously creates this constantly changing cycle. And so essentially the point is the entire blockchain is incentivizing competition between each of the computers to verify and also continue to work on these machine learning models. Now, going down, coming over here and just taking a little look at Cubic, overall, I think this is a really interesting project because you got a really experienced blockchain developer. He worked with NXT, he worked with MIOTA, and he basically created the first proof of useful work blockchain. And the best way to really sum up what Cubic is, it's basically Bitcoin with smart contracts where you can launch projects on top of it, but also it adds this AI machine learning model with it. And so basically what we're seeing is the Cubic model is very similar to the BitSensor Tau, but it's mainly focused on the proof of work side. And so in my opinion, Cubic has the potential to be an absolute sleeper. Now, some things that I like about Cubic is, number one, it's ultra deflationary. Anytime you interact with the smart contract on the Cubic blockchain, tokens are just burnt off. If you get a new project launch, tokens are burnt off. If the Oracle is being used on the blockchain, tokens are burnt off. And they're going to continue to add more utility to burn as many tokens as humanly possible. The next thing that I really like about Cubic is it is extremely difficult to acquire. Now, if I come over here to CoinMarketCap and do a quick screen share, right now, you can only acquire Cubic on Trade Ogre and Safe Trade at the time of this recording. There's a good chance that a centralized exchange might come on and list this project. And so once more and more exchanges list this project, and once more and more people hear about it, then you're going to see some changes in the price. And I'm not going to do any crazy price predictions like you see all these other guys on these other videos. But ultimately, the point I'm trying to get across is my favorite projects are the ones that you can find on extremely sketchy exchanges, because once they get listed on reputable exchanges, that's when you're going to see a lot of people start to dive in. Now, something interesting that I was also looking at with Sergey's background that I also want to mention is that not only is he working on Cubic, but he has this project that blew my mind a little bit, and it's called Paracosm. Now, Paracosm is going to be a platform with a focus on creating multi-dimensional gaming universe, combining elements of augmented and virtual reality, and leveraging distributed ledger technology for its backend infrastructure. So basically what they're trying to do is create this crazy metaverse through the project called Paracosm. And a little other background on Cubic was basically this project has been in the works since 2012, and same with Paracosm. Paracosm started its development right in 2012. And what's interesting is right now they're coming out with Cubic, which it's basically creating this AI blockchain that's going to be used for machine learning models. And then you have this metaverse coming out through Sergey, where it's basically building this virtual reality that we can plug into. And so ultimately, I know it does sound really, really dystopic, and it sounds like, you know, AI is about to take over the world. But how crazy would it be to see the build out of Cubic, and then next thing you know, this Paracosm project comes out as well. But also, please keep in mind, I haven't really seen anything outside of Paracosm. I've seen it on a couple of, I think it was like wikis and a couple chat forums, but it was also in a similar scenario as Cubic, because they originally called it Project Q, and then they announced Cubic, and then finally Cubic launched just in time for this bull market run. And so, in my opinion, I think Cubic is an absolute sleeper. And if we come over here and just check out the prices, just so, because I don't want to forget. So basically, this project launched towards the beginning of this year, and it bottomed out at, I believe that's like 5 zeros and a 2. And now it's sitting at about 5 zeros and a 9. So this is actually the ground level. If you're viewing this video, you're definitely early when it comes to Cubic. So in my opinion, I think this project definitely has a lot of upside. And the other thing I also want to point out here is the market cap. When you guys look at the market cap of Cubic, it's saying $772 million. I don't think that's true whatsoever. I think they're still developing their Oracle. And once their Oracle comes out, you're probably going to get a much more accurate calculation of what the actual market cap is. But if this was actually $772 million, that means it would be way up there on the ranking site. So I would take that with a grain of salt. I think this is going to be a lot less. I would probably put this right around $10 to $15 million, not $772 million. So overall, I really like Cubic. Well-established founder, great tokenomics, has a new approach to AI machine learning in the artificial intelligence space. Now, your final and last hidden AI altcoin gem is AI Power Grid. So, if you guys haven't heard about AI Power Grid, it's very similar to Cubic. It's basically a proof of useful work blockchain. And pretty much everything's very similar across the board. The only thing different is with this proof of useful work blockchain, they actually follow a halving schedule. Now, if we come over here to the white paper, let's see, do I have the white paper up? No, let's pop it up real quick. We'll give you guys a quick breakdown of what it is. So the AI Power Grid stands at the intersection of blockchain and artificial intelligence, aiming to make open source AI technology more accessible, more rewarding for the community. Beginning as a Ravencoin fork, AIPG initially adopts a proof of work model to attract GPU miners, and then later transition to proof of useful work framework, which will allow these miners to evolve into node operators that will host and manage local AI workloads. So basically, Ravenfork, that's a project that launched right around the same time Ethereum launched, and they were getting a lot into tokenized assets. They were really getting into NFTs, but it's not really a popular network. And so ultimately, what AI Power Grid is doing is they're setting up a proof of work blockchain. And once that hash rate is up there, they're going to switch over to proof of useful work. And then they're going to start basically building out these AI machine learning models that are very similar to what we see with Cubic and Bit Sensor Tau. And so ultimately, this is a very new project. Their main entryway into the AI space is they're really getting into the creation of digitized NFTs on the blockchain. Now, the one thing that really popped out to me with this project was over here on the tokenomics. So as I've said earlier, it is a proof of work blockchain transitioning to a proof of useful work blockchain and then adding those AI machine learning models. But they have a very unique token emission schedule. So Bit Sensor Tau has a Bitcoin halving. Cubic basically mints tokens every single epoch, which is every single 7 days. So it doesn't have that Bitcoin format. And then AI Power Grid is essentially doing something called halving points. So basically, when it first launched this year, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main halving points where they're going to really cut down the supply. And the goal is to have an increased inflation at the beginning. And then once we phase out of the bull market, there's going to be a constant set inflation coming into the next bull market, which is going to be right around 2029 to about 2032. And so there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's going to be 5 halving points there where they're going to really cut down the supply. And then going closer to 2041 and 2042, that's when we're going to have the last 2 halving points. This is probably going to be not the next bull market, but it's going to be the one there on after that. So closer to the third one after that. So cool, good stuff. Now, the goal of these halving points is to create a massive inflation shock and essentially create a huge demand for the token. Because right now, AI Power Grid is trying to set up their proof of useful work blockchain, but because the hash rate or the amount of computational power going to the network is so low, they need to incentivize people to come on and increase it so that they can go to this next step. And so in my opinion, AI Power Grid is the first of these AI blockchains right at the base level. It recently just launched and it has the potential to turn into the next Cubics or even turn into the next Bit Sensor Tau. Now, overall, after jumping into Bit Sensor Tau, Cubic, and AI Power Grid, I think these 3 blockchains are going to be revolutionary when we start to get past this next bull market and we phase into the artificial intelligence revolution. And the reason why I say that is if you guys go look at Bit Sensor Tau, they're combining proof of work with proof of stake to create a network that supports machine learning programs. Cubic is essentially creating its own network, and it's using computers to basically create these machine learning programs and basically push out the inflation of their token and then use that token to be burned through any sort of interaction on the blockchain. So basically, the Cubic token goes from crazy inflationary to deflationary very, very quickly. And then the last one, AI Power Grid, which is very basic, is basically doing a proof of useful work blockchain, very similar to Bitcoin, but using these halving points to increase adoption. Now, the reason why all these blockchains are important is because we're starting to see the preliminary setup of an advanced AI system. In my opinion, Google, Yahoo, and all these big corporations, they're going to need to open source their software when it comes to the AI revolution, because when it comes to this type of technology, people are extremely scared. People do not trust these corporations after seeing all the craziness with social media and all the stuff you probably saw in the last election. And so, in my opinion, with this AI narrative, it's going to start off with like chatbots, marketplaces, and all this small little stuff. And then it's going to phase into these blockchains where they're actually creating these machine learning models that are going to be used to solve problems. And so, in my opinion, not a lot of people are talking about this. I barely see anyone talk about Cubic. I barely see anyone talk about AI Power Grid. I'm starting to see more people talk about Bit Sensor Tau, but not many people really understand what Bit Sensor Tau is. And so right now, Cubic and AI Power Grid are extremely difficult tokens to acquire. going on to the future, there's a good chance that Cubic might be listed on some top tier exchanges, and same with AI Power Grid. And that's when you're going to see the floodgates open for each of these projects. So based on my research and what I see here, I think these 3 projects are going to be the true heart and soul of the AI revolution. Those AI chatbots and all those other crazy marketplaces, they'll do okay. But the ones that are actually building an AI system that can be used for everyday life, like Cubic, AI Power Grid, or BitSense or Tau, those are the ones that are going to be the most lucrative in this AI trend coming in next into the next bull market. So, guys, that is it for the video. Thank you so much for watching the R2R Network. My name's Chaos Chris. I love every single one of you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, y'all.